89.3 WPNE Green Bay, your home for NPR News and classical music.
Good morning. Veteran American diplomat Richard Holbrook has died. I'm Terry Bell. It's Tuesday, December 14th, and this is Morning Edition on Wisconsin Public Radio. Back at Holbrook's life and legacy after our state news. In Wisconsin, the state government's economic development incentives are being called among the most transparent in America. That's in our state news. And all morning long on Morning Edition, we'll tell you how you can support Wisconsin Public Radio and maybe win an iPad, too. It's our micro membership drive. It should be very cold today in Wisconsin today with sunny highs mainly in the teens. The news is next. From NPR News in Washington, I'm Craig Wyndham. Federal Reserve policymakers meet in Washington today to assess interest rates in light of the Fed's decision to pump $600 billion into the U.S. economy to bolster growth. That policy is designed to lower rates, but they've actually risen some instead. Jason Clemens with the Pacific Research Institute in San Francisco tells the BBC the reason is ongoing unease about the federal deficit.
I would expect a great deal of concern coming from the Fed about medium and longer term rates based on, as I say, this unease about the longer-term ability of the U.S. economy and the U.S. government to service the size of debts that we're talking about.
The Fed is expected to make no change in interest rates today. The Senate is poised to approve the tax cut package worked out by President Obama and congressional Republican leaders, but NPR's David Wellner reports Democrats in the House are intent on making changes to the measure.
Both opposition and support for the two-year extensions of all the Bush-era tax cuts were bipartisan. 5 Republicans joined 10 Democrats in voting against the measure. But most of their colleagues appear ready to send the proposal to the House for its approval. The problem is many House Democrats don't want to vote on the package in its current form. They insist on taking out an estate tax provision they see as too generous to the wealthy and replacing it with one that would generate more revenue for the Treasury. Doing so would mean the Senate would then have to approve such a change, and Republicans warn it could lead to the whole deal unraveling. David Wellner, NPR News, the Capitol.
A ruling by a federal judge in Virginia against a key element of the new health care law has opponents and supporters of that law preparing to take the dispute to the next level. The judge was ruling on a challenge brought by Virginia's Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli.
I think it's a reasonable presumption that this will all end at the U.S. Supreme Court, and while we look forward to getting there, we're much happier to go with a win in round one.
Cuccinelli commenting on a judge's ruling that the law's requirement that most Americans have health insurance goes too far. 2 other federal judges, though, have found no problem with that provision. Veteran diplomat Richard Holbrook, the administration's point man for Afghanistan and Pakistan, has died of complications from surgery to repair his aorta over the weekend. He was 69. State Department spokeswoman Nicole Thompson reads from a statement by Secretary of State Hillary Clinton.
He was a consummate diplomat, able to stare down dictators and stand up for America's interests and values, even under the most difficult circumstances.
Holbrook served as U.S. ambassador to the UN and as a diplomatic troubleshooter. He was the chief architect of the peace accord that ended the war in Bosnia in 1995. Italy's Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi has narrowly survived a no-confidence vote in the lower house of Parliament. He got by a similar vote in the Senate by a somewhat more comfortable margin. Despite the victories, though, the road ahead for his center-right government remains uncertain. This is NPR News from Washington.